The international community has expressed concern over the wave of military coups in Africa, with the latest development in Gabon. With Gabon, the number of countries in Africa under military rule in the last 2 years has jumped to 7. The others are Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Sudan, and Niger. As the embattled President Ali Bongo cried out for help, the Gabon coup elicited immediate reactions from President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria, United Nations, European Union, African Union, Commonwealth, United States of America, Russia, and France, who condemned his ouster. President Bola Tinubu has said he is communicating with other world leaders on the unfolding situation in Gabon. The president also said he is watching closely with deep concern the social-political stability and the autocratic contention apparently spreading across different regions of the African continent. But joining us via Zoom is Sam Omotseye, a political commentator and essayist. Good morning, Sam. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica. Good to be here.
Right. Now, let's quickly look at President Bola Tinubu's statements with regards to these coups in Gabon, as well as Niger. If you look at the papers this morning, he was concerned. He said the coup in Gabon just expresses the fear he has about copycats. I wonder what you make of the statement he made.
Yes, the interesting thing about the coups is that not each of them is the same. We use the word copycat because they are all coups. But if you look at each of them, they have a kind of a character of their own. Right. The one from Gabon itself is an expression of a dynastic hubris in the country of Gabon, where one family has taken over the country for at least 56 years.
Right.
That is saying something, isn't it? But that is different from the case of Niger that we have been talking about, where a palace coup took place for a man that they thought was trying to sack the military officer. That was the reason that they did that. Then the other thing you see there also is the whole idea of French presence, which they have used as an excuse. In case of Mali, they also talked about Mali, Burkina Faso. They talked about taking over because of Al-Qaeda and ISIL. In Sudan, it's different. Sudan is not West Africa, and so on and so forth. So it is true that it's copycat to the extent that they are all coups, but each country has its own peculiar motivation for taking over. And the interesting thing about it is that the military claims to be coming in because they want to restore democracy. Can you imagine? In Niger, they said they're going to do transition to. You can say it's copycat to the extent that all of them are cases of military men taking over from civilian leaders. But each country has its own peculiar story, its own peculiar characteristic. One is an issue of dynasty, where one family.
Yes, we can hear you now, but the point you were making earlier on was the point of the military intervention in a political system, especially with regards to Gabon, when it's talked about the election not reflecting the hopes of the people, and they are trying to restore or change that, so to speak.
That's what I'm saying, that each of them has their own characteristic. In Gabon, in 56 years, the family has been in power. And Ali Bongo, who is actually a very sick man having stroke, brought stroke to even not only became a metaphor for the democracy of the country. The democracy also has stroke. So what has happened? He has taken over and he wants to be there for another term, a third term. It's not the only one. There are other cases too. I think Burkina Faso, wanted to be there for another third term, and all of them all of them think that they can just get away with it. It was a case of trying to rig an election. And so the military took advantage of that. And because the mass of the people knew that the election was rigged, and the man was flushed out of power.
Well, talking about the recent coup in Gabon, Ali Bongo didn't have enough time to enjoy, to relish his electoral victory before he was toppled. It is said that the people are already expecting and waiting for the downfall of the Bongo family, which has been ruling for more than half a decade, just like half a century, just like you said. But with the announcement of the transitional leader, do you think this might bring back trust, in the minds of the people, or to rebuild the trust in the democratic institution in Gabon?
Point is that they hate the one that is going out. They don't like the one that is coming in. But they have to the one that is coming thinks that it is because they love them. No, but it is the hatred. It is the hatred of the one that is going out that they are expressing, and then people think that is their love. They have not been tested. So how do you love somebody you have not tested that you don't know? But the euphoria is actually misplaced. The feeling that, okay, we've had these people and we love them, we are happy that we have a military rule. It doesn't make sense. In Nigeria, we used to have it in those days when there was a military coup. We'll be happy, and then after we sit and say, what have we brought to ourselves? That is it.
All right. Yes. Now, Sam, let's look at the concerns still being raised with regards to this coup in Gabon. We have seen Cameroonian president reshuffle his commanders. We have seen President of Rwanda also retire 12 generals, 1,000 soldiers. And the question is, what are they afraid of? What are the undercurrents
exactly.
that they are not looking at? Are they not just treating the symptoms as against the real issues that is spurring up these coups?
You have your finger right on it. You think that is by shuffling the soldiers, it can help. And especially in poor countries, when a tyrant is very clever and is very manipulative, you can be in power for a long time. Because even if there's poverty, it is no guarantee that the government can change. As they say, a revolutionary situation does not necessarily create a revolution. Because Africa has been in a revolutionary situation forever, but we have not really had the revolution. It doesn't necessarily lead to it. The fact that they think that they can flush out their military and rework their military, they think that that is a guarantee for political or even tenure stability is an illusion. But it helps because what it shows there is that there's vigilance. There's vigilance on the military, and it makes the military a little bit uncomfortable with itself. And to talk about Gabon, you know that the person who engineered the coup in Gabon is actually also a member of the family. So you think that you're getting rid of one family. It's the same blood that has taken over. So when you go around the corner, you meet at the roundabout. So it's the same problem.
Interesting. But then if you listen to Bongo, the call that he made in the video message, he did it in English and not in French. I understand that Gabon is now part of the Commonwealth. So I'm now wondering, which is also something to consider here, why is Gabon, a former French colony, now seek to be a member of the Commonwealth, in terms of the Franco-Gabonese relationship, to the point where Gabon is, tilting towards the Commonwealth? Is this to say that there is now a departure from what we always known as Franco-Afrique, that is France in Africa?
It's good that you raised this question about France in Africa. The French are the most vicious and the most racist of all the colonial officers, because while we in the English part of the colonial Africa, former colonial Africa, complain that we still have neo-colonialism, which is still real in our lives and in our politics and so on and so forth. In the case of the French, it is really vicious, very racist, and very, very cynical. They had system called assimilation, which is assimilation. They believe that they were not, you're not going to, they're not going to rule over you. You're going to be just part of the family. That was the great illusion of their colonial system, their colonial strategy. So they believe that with that system, every colonial body is like France. We are all together, we are the same family and all of that, which is completely deceitful, really deceitful. And then in 1956, they had what they called the Loire Card, the LOINCADRE. We mean that they're getting to an agreement with all their colonies, including those in West Africa, in which they will say, okay, all of us are going to belong to one family, but you can have your own elections and so on, but there are certain things that we will control, including your finances. So when you take my money, if you take my money, what is left? You take my money, then you are no longer my honey, and so you cannot have a journey. That's what it is. So what happened was that they did that agreement. After that agreement, although some people opted out like Guinea, Sekou Touré, they made them subject to them, and that system persists up to today. When I went to Benin Republic to cover Sekou Touré's election about a decade and a half ago, somebody told me that if he wanted to post a letter to the next street, you first of all go to Paris before it comes down to the next street in Benin Republic. Up to today, more than half of each of the Francophone countries' money is stored in the central bank of France. So if I want to collect my money, I'll have to write an application and justify removing the money from there. What kind of country is, what kind of system is that? It's so racist. That is the problem with the French system. Even within France itself, they believe that everybody belongs to one family. There is no race. There's nothing. So you deny that there are different people, but when it comes to policies, you remember that somebody is black and he cannot live in particular neighborhood, he cannot get a particular job, and he cannot be elected to a particular office.
Right, Sam. So
that is what happens. So when Gabon says it wants to get out of it, it is because of the consciousness,
right,
in French Africa and French West Africa, that the French model is not working for them. It held them down. And the interesting thing that we must note is that these coup plotters are seemingly exploiting that to say that, oh, we want to free ourselves from France. If they want to free themselves from France, look at Niger. They are still taking uranium from them. Why don't you drive the French from them?
Sam, these former colonies of France trying to free themselves from the grip of France. And that's the conversation that has been going on. A lot of persons are saying that this is about these former colonies trying to purge themselves of, or free themselves from the grip of France. And I am wondering if that is what we are seeing happening and if they can even successfully do this or achieve this. Because we see Niger telling the France ambassador that he has to leave the country before the end of a particular day, on Friday, in 48 hours. I think Friday is today. And how is that going to happen?
Well, we'll wait and see. Macron said that his ambassador will not leave. You see, that's what I'm saying about what the French think. They think they own their African colonies. The same thing happened in Algeria during the time of Charles de Gaulle. That the indigenous population had to fight a war to free themselves of France. Because France saw Algeria as their own territory. And their people had lived there, including the great writer Albert Camus. You know, they had lived there and they've come to see Algeria as if they own it. It is a very interesting story, relationship between the French and Africa and France. During the time of Charles de Gaulle, when Charles de Gaulle in the Second World War was trying to fight against the Nazi Germany, he came to institute what was called the Free French. That the French people, the black French people in Africa, were asked to go and fight war to free France from colonialism, where they themselves had not been freed from France. They became a slave of a slave. So this relationship has been going on for a long time, where the French people in Africa and West Africa were seen as subhuman, whereas they told them that they were even equal. They are not equal anything. So these military people who came to power, who are trying to say that, oh, we are fighting against France, they should first of all stop them from exploiting their minerals. Tell them not to go and exploit our minerals if they are not working together. Sending ambassadors away may be populist. But the fundamental problem is stopping them from holding the jugular of their economies, where the French are doing. That's what the French are doing. In Africa, these people just come here in cynical move, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's the United States, whether it's France. They're only interested in what we have as resources. That is what it is.
Interesting.
And they think that they own us. When Napoleon took over territories in those days, he told them, the directory in France, who were taken over from the revolutionary Jacobins, he said that, oh, the people who have taken over, they have gotten accustomed to us. How can you get accustomed to your conqueror?
Well, looking at
it is that kind of feeling.
Looking at the case of Gabon, General Nguama, who is, just like you said, a member of the post-president, the family, it does appear like the more things change, the more they stay the same. So if the military, the transition leader, and the coupists are promising peace and stability, do you think that is possible, the way you look at it?
You cannot have peace without the consent of the people. You can only have peace when you have the consent of the people. They will have a semblance of peace now. But you discover that we have been having coups in all of these countries since when? Since the past couple of years.
They've had over 100 out of the 200 and something that we had in Africa so far.
Yeah. So we've had all of them. Remember, what we're having here is a throwback to the 1960s, where you had coups everywhere. Why were the coups going on? They said the civilian governments were not acting well. Indeed, they were not acting well. They had what they called the Preventive Detention Act, which you had in Ghana, you had in Nigeria, you had in many other countries in West Africa, in which they tried to muzzle down the opposition. And when you muzzle down the opposition, you create a one-party state and a democratic tyranny. That is what you had in all those countries. And the military came in and said, no, we will not be part of it. Then they took over, and our continent crawled under them. Nigeria went into civil war. Ghana went into economic malaise, that even their citizens started running about on the continent looking for food and jobs in other countries. It has Pericles Benin Republic was strangulated. Even Guinea under Secretary became known for using different kinds of tactics to tie people down. He used cocoa, he used religion with his big church and other things to hold down the people down. But eventually, the system had to collapse because there was no civil buying into their system. It was not democratic and it was not legitimate. So what they are doing here is that they are buying time. They are taking advantage of false euphoria that, we're happy we have gotten rid of that person. But, when you get rid of them, you have to wake up one day and tell you what have you bargained for.
Right. Now, Sam, there are those who believe that it is high time that African leaders begin to speak the truth to themselves, especially with regards to how we have seen a wave of coups in the past years. When they go for meetings like the AU, when they hold their meetings, when Ecowas holds its meetings, it is time that they begin to look themselves in the eye to tell themselves the truth I wonder what you make of this, if this will help the matter of democracy across the continent. We have said that military incursion is old-fashioned. We do not want to go in that direction. But if democracy is not delivering on its promises, what then should the people do?
Well, you know, the African leaders will not stay true to themselves. There are some of them who are still hanging tight to office, like Paul Biya.
Right.
You know, they are still there for decades. They don't want to leave. Rather than address the issue of democracy, they are trying to go after their military and try to flush them and reorganize them and so on. And as you said, it is all dealing with symptoms rather than the essential problem. The African Union and the Ecowas should talk to all those tight people, tell them to become democratic and tell truth to them. But that would be, they will say, oh, you're interfering in our matter and so on. And they're also part of the coalition that wants to, that want to flush out the soldiers who have taken over power. So it's a moral dilemma. It's a moral dilemma for the leaders of African countries where you have democracy to even tell the so-called Democrats among them that they are not Democrats, and that they should open up their system. But that opening up their system will mean opening them up for democratic flushing out. Now they don't want to be flushed out of power. So it's a moral dilemma for the leaders who are leading the democratic country like the Nigerian President Tinubu. It is a moral dilemma to go and tell Paul Biya that, look, I was elected to office, but you are sitting tight. So create political atmosphere for you to get out of that seat. It becomes a problem.
Let's look at the implication of these coups in Africa, because if you look at what is happening in Niger and the contiguity between, among these countries, having Guinea, Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan, that spread across the Nigerian flag, even though Gabon is somewhere within the Central Africa, a bit remotely from Nigeria. If push comes to shove and there is military intervention to restore constitutional order, what advice would you be giving to ECOWAS and, by extension, the African Union, if they have to resort to war?
There will not be war, let me tell you. All of this is grandstanding. Nigeria cannot, for instance, Nigeria can't go to war. The parliament has said that no war. So the president cannot go to war. So let us get that one clear. Everything that is going on is more of a yes, it's a good word. It's all noise. There can be no war. There's no determination to go to war. You cannot underestimate the military when you go to war. Napoleon said that the spirit is 3-to-1 compared to equipment when you go to war. Because if the people there have more morale than you, your weaponry will not take you anywhere. That Napoleon fought more wars than anybody in modern era. And they will tell you that there's nothing more powerful than the morale. These people these West African folks don't have any morale to go to war. They don't have any strength, they don't have any motivation, except that their commander-in-chief tells them to go to war. Remember what happened to Ecomog? Ecomog was there and grounded for many years because the people they were fighting had more spirit than they had.
Interesting.
Right. So this matter of, there was a video that came out where the aide to the son of Ali Bongo was found with a stash of cash of various currencies. And this is also one of the issues that is being talked about, corruption, how it is that this matter has to also be addressed. I wonder how you see these issues of corruption eating into the fabric of our society as Africans, and how do we address it?
Well, that is one of the problems. It's not only that they have a lot of cash all over the place. There's what I call cynical ostentation. They tend to want to try to put it in your face. They will steal your money and look at you, look at me now. I'm enjoying it, and you are there suffering. Gabon. It's the same thing. Gabon has a lot of mineral resources. It's a potentially wealthy country, just like Nigeria. I don't know of any country that is potentially wealthier than Nigeria on earth other than the United States. But we need to, wealth is not how much you have, as they say. Even when you have money, wealth is not how much you have. Wealth is what you do without wealth. It's what you do without wealth. It's how you are able to, it's what you are free to do for yourself, according to Henry James, without money. That is when you describe somebody, you consider somebody wealthy. It is how much freedom it gives to you, to give you peace. But when you have money without liberty, you have no money. Even on a personal level, if you have money, I have somebody who was saying the other day, say, when he's happy, when he goes to a bank, it will look like this. He will look at his account. Those days, they used to write it in there. They will write your account. You didn't have to go to find your alert on phone. So you go to the bank, and then they will write your balance. And the person say, when you look at his money, you look at it, say, it's not what makes you happy. It's not what makes you happy. It is whether you have comfort, whether you have peace, whether you have joy. It is what it translates to that. So that is the problem. If you go to Europe, you see them on the high streets doing all kinds of shopping, getting big houses all over the world that they cannot visit except maybe once a year, and sleep in only half an inch of the bed, and then the rest of the people in the country are suffering. That is what the problem is in Africa, is that we have what they call the alley cat syndrome. The alley cat who consumes, who keeps eating and eating and eating, thinking that anything I get, I have to acquire, because I don't know whether I will not acquire it again. So you're not even acquiring the wealth for happiness' sake, you're acquiring the wealth for wealth's sake. So it creates cynical ostentation where the very few corral the wealth of the country, and because you corral it and you want to keep corralling, you want to keep the other people at bay, and they suffer, and then you look for strategies to stay in power. And the consequence is what we are seeing today with the soldiers knocking on the door.
Right. That's a fine place to leave this conversation. Sam Omashe, a political commentator and essayist. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you.